Hetch, this is
But
too deep for a Gnar episode. Why'd you do this?
oh, you're
Why
welcome.
are you doing this?
You're welcome. I don't know if you know this, but I really like reading lore.
Welcome to Casuals of Runeterra, episode 103. I'm your host, Ryan, here with your other host, Hetch.
And we're going to try to do the impossible, which is work within a time frame.
Let's hop into it. Housekeeping, baby. You can listen to us everywhere. You can send us any email that you want to podcastcore, that's C-O-R, @gmail.com. You can visit us at podcastcore.com for all of our info, and then follow us on the platform you prefer, or all the platforms, because that helps a lot. Leave a like, a comment, short review with your thoughts. But the easiest way is to tell a friend, just one of your friends, hopefully you have one, to grug me hunt good by listening to the Casuals of Runeterra podcast.
And casual, grammar, bad. Casual, think, fast.
Today we're talking about Captain Caveman. Listen, we age ourselves in a lot of these episodes, so our Zoomer listeners out there, we're sorry. Captain Caveman, look it up. It's it's older than we are for once. So back off.
That's right. Yeah. You know, like we were able to consume stuff before us. Like it's gonna shock you that there's more human history than just the last decade.
We're talking about Gnar. Finally, we're way behind on Gnar. If you remember, we had like a Bandle City blitz where we did a lot of those characters, and then other characters came out, and then things changed, and then timing was off, and we took a little bit of a break. We're back with Gnar.
Yeah. And if you also remember, we're not going to name anyone, but one of the hosts of the show does not like Yordles that much. So, there may have been one party member that was just like, yeah, no, let's push it back. Let's just keep pushing Gnar back. But we're not going to name names. We're not going to point fingers anywhere.
Yeah, let's get into it before your sensibilities start to degrade. You start to get racist because it's bound to happen.
All right, so I'm going to start off with a spell here because we're the Casuals of Runeterra. We really like doing like a lot of deep dives into the world building behind these characters and stuff. Yeah. And the flavor text of this spell is really going to set the tone for what we've got to work with here. All right. So the spell for today is going to be Wallop. All right. So Wallop is a 3-mana fast speed spell with deal 1 to an enemy and stun it. So this is a really nice kind of combat trick per se for Bandle City that is also a little bit different than their normal stuff, because Bandle City tends to be a lot more on the aggressive side. We're talking flooding the board out and trying to get in really quick with either elusive and impact damage. So this is a nice tool to have, especially since they don't really run a lot of big guys. So this will kind of save one of your chump blockers to try to swing out and get more damage on the other turn, or to save the chump block for another turn. So it's a very nice spell to have in Bandle City. But again, we love our flavor text here, and the flavor text of this card. Let me do my best here. Ahanga. All right. That's the wealth of knowledge that we're going to be diving into today.
If you're a veteran listener, sometimes we can't pronounce certain names of villages and places, but Hetch nails the random outburst.
Yeah, again, like there's two things that Hetch does on this show, which is be racist towards Yordles and random outbursts.
Hetch, you can't just say ahanga. It's not appropriate.
Hetch, that's Gnar's word. Okay, so oh no. All right, let's hop over to our followers. So this is gonna be going straight to hell. basket. All
Oh
right, so
man.
the follower, especially, kind of, again, we've been pushing off Gnar for a long time, so this was an absolute terror on the ladder for a very short amount of time, and now we are never seeing it again. So this is Teeny Dactyl. All right, Teeny Dactyl is a 4 mana 4/3 follower, and it has round end. If you've changed or if you've damaged the enemy nexus this round, transform me into pterodactyl. So the with Gnar, like, this was when we first got our transform mechanics, and 9 times out of 10, the transform mechanic is triggered by dealing damage to the enemy nexus. It's one of the reasons why you get to see a lot of, like, either cantrip spells that deal direct damage or impact in Bandle City, because that helps trigger your transforms. Now, Teeny Dactyl, when it transforms into Pterodactyl, is a 6/5 with impact 1, and round start, deal 1 to the enemy nexus. And oh boy, if you were playing ladder when Gnar first came out, you hated this card. You kept your answers
Yep.
in hand for this card, not for Gnar, for this card. It was absolutely devastating. But the cool thing is that since we have two sides of a card here, well, first we get 2 pieces of art, which the Teeny Dactyl art is fantastic because you get to see, like, a bunch of Yordles trying to mess with it on a boat.
Mhm.
And then what happens when it flips into these poor Yordles. The art is really cool, but we also get a lot of information here. So we have the creatures of Nakotak Valley are as varied and lively as the land they inhabit, and just as likely to explode. And on the flip side, once enraged, the pterodactyls tear erratically through the skies, leaving mayhem and enraptured Yordles in their colorful wake. And you can see the enraptured Yordles on the full art of that card.
Yeah, and they're still
But
smiling because they're
there's
maniacs.
yeah, well, I mean, they're Yordles. Like, Yordles are whimsical to a fault. But it is interesting because we get a location, the Nakutak Valley. And when we dive into Gnar's story, I'm kind of curious if Gnar, as far as, like, the Nakutak Valley, is located in the Freljord, or if the Nakutak Valley is located in Bandle City, because that's a question you have to ask when we're dealing with Yordles, is which plane are we on here? I don't know if we're in Runeterra or not when we're talking about the Nakutak Valley, but when we get into Gnar's story, it's very likely that that could have been in the Freljord before the events of the Freljord happen. So it is very interesting to question, to ponder, but unfortunately, in this episode, we're not going to find an answer today.
Yeah, it feels sort of like I'm happy you brought it up because that brings us well into Gnar. It's going to feel kind of like a small retcon, sort of, where Gnar is a simple character. As we start off the episode, grug, he's a caveman. So it could be that he doesn't really understand the concept of portals. So he could have been in the valley and also still be in between realms at that time. I think that's an easy way to explain it, to kind of just push the question aside. Because you don't really have to think about it too much. It doesn't make a big enough deal. And
Right.
if you look at the story from Runeterra or Legends of Runeterra, the card game, what they've given us from Gnar, it just feels like a future tense thing where, hey, now that we're in the real world, there's other people of Gnar's tribe, and he's starting to build a community because, as we'll tell in the story, spoiler, he loses everything he knows because of an event. So let's get into it and talk about
Yeah,
it.
and I think you're absolutely right. It's not important to answer it because we all know that Gnar's only opinion on it is ahanga.
So we start off here with just introduction to Gnar. He's a unique Yordle with a ton of energy, and he comes to the Freljord during, like, the barbaric pre-Ice Age sort of time frame, early time frame of man. So this is before the ice that we know, as we've talked about in our other episodes that are Freljord related, exist. And instead of people, he prefers kind of to hang around the Yetis, but he bounces between the two because he likes to follow the humans around as they do their hunting, gathering, foraging, etc. And he feels more comfortable with Yetis because he sees them as just big Yordles. They're big, white, furry Yordles to him.
And we do know that even though that Gnar is much more like kind of simple in comparison to a lot of the other Yordles that we have, is that Yordles, down to their nature, they're very whimsical, but they're very social. So it's very important for Gnar to find this collection of Yetis because it's like, yeah, sure, I may not want to be in Bandle City because don't I want to be more wild and enjoy the nature, but I still miss kinship,
Yeah.
and the Yetis provide that. It's like, oh, you're big Yordles. Y'all are cool with me. And that's it.
And they barely know he exists because there's a statement that he's like, look, Gnar, we know he's tiny, cute, and barely makes prints in the snow because he's so small, right? But he thinks of himself as a bigger personality, and he does have a big personality because he has a temper that's 10 times his size. He likes to do things like collect
Oh.
rocks. What would you say?
I said, oh. And then, like try to give like the Hanna-Barbera like commentary.
He has the short man complex.
Just pick up the boomerang. You drop this king.
But he likes to collect pebbles. He likes to collect dead birds, rocks. And then one day he finds his prized possession, which we know him for, which is the jawbone of a Druvask or Druvsk or Druvask. I don't know. Druvisk? How do you want to say this?
I like Dravask.
Dravask?
Yeah, Dravask. And that's officially canon now.
Okay. So the jawbone of a Dravask, and this becomes his boomerang and now his official weapon that he now uses to think of himself as a hunter.
I love this so much because it's kind of they. I will give credit where credit is due, because there's not a lot to work with here, and this is a great way of kind of like honing in on Gnar's personality without having any kind of conversations at all because he can't talk. So like this is a really good way to like this is a decent storytelling for a story that's not really involved. Like this is good. I still don't like Yordles.
So at this point, we get some action to start to happen where the sky starts to seem darker, the wind's getting colder, because remember, this is not the Freljord we know in present time. And he has a feeling, because of his hunting skills now, that something wrong is happening. He doesn't know what. He's not smart enough to figure it out himself. So he decides he's going to go seek out the Yetis, and they may have an idea. So he uses his hunting skills to track them up into the peaks of the mountain range. And when he gets there, he's surprised because it's not just Yetis, there's mortals up here too, and it's a lot of people in one place, and he's never really expected this.
Yeah, and not only is it a lot of people in one place, but part of the change that Gnar senses here, he also notices that the mortals that he does run into, that now they're hunting each other is how he sees it, because they're not hunting and foraging, they're hunting each other, but what he's really witnessing is war.
Yeah.
So that is important distinction here as far as when he finds the Yetis, and it's like, wait, the Yetis are with the mortals too. So it's like there's definitely something big going on, even though Gnar has no idea what it is, but he's right that there's change in the air.
Yeah. And he mentions too that everybody looks unhappy, right? Where he's like, I'm happy to be here because something big is happening. Like, I'm at the celebration. It's not a celebration, Gnar. And he finds out when the ground begins to shake violently and everyone starts to make noise, the Yeti start roaring, and it's in shock. And then out of this new abyss that's been created in the ground, a monster starts to rise out with huge horns, whipping tentacles, and a single eye with a strange light. It begins to climb out. And if you want to know more about that, obviously we have our Lysandra episode.
We and you can listen to some of our other episodes that deal with what is that realm called again? The Void.
Yeah.
So problems afoot.
Yeah, it's one of those things where this is another possible retcon. The part that threw me off was the whipping tentacles. I don't know if that threw you off, because we got with Runeterra, Legends of Runeterra, I was at the specify the card game. We got a lot of instances of the thralls, right? And these old ice creatures and what they look like. And the two things that fit are they're big, the horns, the single eye with the strange light, but not so much the tentacles. I couldn't really find imagery of a tentacled beast that was also a thrall-like creature from the old ice period.
And see, like the tentacles threw me off too because
Yeah.
like that's not something that we really covered, uh, or it's not something that we see in the Freljord stories.
Yeah.
But if we're looking just specifically at the void, there's plenty of tentacles in the
Yeah,
void.
exactly.
And so then like, but when it came up, I was like, wait, was Vel'Koz involved? Like that makes no
Yeah.
sense.
For all we know
Uh,
at this point, there's no void activity. So is the abyss a mixture of both? But it's not really dimensional. It's just under the true ice. So
Yeah. And see, I've always kind of assumed, or like in my head, I've always put it together as the abyss
yeah.
being like the Freljordian understanding of the void. Because
Oh,
I think that the void is, kind of more like all encompassing, and that's more of a cultural thing.
that's actually a
But
good point. I never thought of it like that.
yeah, but like I mean that I also kind of take that with like the sea monsters in Bilgewater and the
Yeah.
depths where it's like, but it's
Whoa,
kind of
Hesh just
harder
hit us
to
with some big theory here that I
yeah, but
really
like
haven't.
and I never brought it up because it's like I don't think that that's true because
Yeah.
like it doesn't fit for the Blessed Isles, which are now the Shadow Isles,
Yeah.
and like as far as the monsters of the depths, like they're too close to all of that.
Hedge, this is
But
too deep for a Gnar episode. Why'd you do this?
oh, you're
Why are
welcome.
you doing this?
You're welcome. I don't know if you know this, but I really like reading lore.
There's a lot of good points there, and we're gonna have to come back to that because I want to explore
Yeah.
that more.
Hey, again, we're not going to explore it now because we're exploring it at the moment through the eyes of Gnar, and all he's got is ahanga.
So, this monster's coming out, and Gnar has a strange feeling, which is part rage, part something else, maybe motivation, and he begins leaping at this monster. And as he does so, the way he sees himself is kind of this body dysmorphia, where he thinks he's still small Gnar. So what am I doing? But what everyone else sees is he turned into a Yeti. He's a massive Yeti, and he's throwing a bowl or trying to throw a boulder at this thing and wallop it. But at that moment, he suddenly becomes frozen in place, and what he can feel is an elemental magic because he's a Yordle, never forget. What we know it to be is true ice, which listen to Ash, Trundle, Sedge. We have plenty of early episodes that go over that. And this kind of chill is colder than any winter he's ever felt, and the anger he's feeling melts away, and he slowly begins to drift off.
And it's really impressive as far as this being true ice because it kind of gives us more of an idea of the time frame here. Because that could have been Lysandra, but
Yep.
it also could have been like Avarosa. Like we're going like now we know that this is happening way back in
Yeah.
Freljord history. Like that gives us a time frame that he's getting frozen in true ice. But the it's also really funny because we're seeing this his first Berserker's first rage, and like we're getting to see it through Nar's eyes. So he's like, I'm gonna throw a snowball at this guy, and what everyone else sees is this giant Yeti ripping a chunk of the mountain out
Yeah.
to throw a giant boulder at this guy. But he's like, snowball.
I remember the first time I had a Mountain Dew and punched a hole in a wall. Felt good. Felt real.
Yeah. Um, and but like that does he gets frozen and that kind of takes us to the end because he just naps and then he wakes up and it's like wow, snow's everywhere.
Yep.
My boomerang's still here, and he doesn't care. Like he immediately just he no longer cares about this monster and what happened to the Yetis or anything. He's like, yeah, boomerang's still here. There's snow everywhere. Let's go hunting.
Yeah, because as far as he's concerned, that time didn't happen because he's a Yordle. So time's already a messy complex for him. And then he's frozen in true ice for an eternity, it feels like, which just completely screws that up. So why try? He's not smart enough. So there's no point in thinking about it. But he does have one Yordle trait. He loves adventure, and he's looking forward to meeting new people and seeing new things because everything is new now. The thing he knew is gone, so it just reset. It's a new game plus, baby. Let's go.
Oh, Yordles. Ahanga.
But let's talk about the card because we do
Oh
that.
man.
I almost forgot. I was about to end the episode.
Man, and we do have to talk about the card because we get to talk about it post nerf.
Yes, post nerf, but still one of the better representations of the character. When it originally came out, we were surprised on how much they nailed it. with the way it reflects his gameplay in League of Legends. If you have played it, if you haven't played it, don't play it. It's a nightmare. But he's a 4-cost 3/3, small little guy. He has quick attack because every champion does. He has strike, and when you do so, it creates a pokey stick in hand. Or if you already have one, it reduces his cost by 2, which essentially just makes it free. And as Hetch mentioned before, the theme here is damage causes transformations. So at round end, if you've damaged the enemy nexus this round, he flips.
Right? And the flip is really cool with Gnar because he becomes a 5/5 instead of a 4/4. So he gets a +2/+2. Quick attack and overwhelm. When I level up, grant the strongest enemy vulnerable. And at round end, if I've seen you start the round with the attack token, transform me back into Gnar. All right, so the flip side is Mega Gnar, just like his ultimate, and then he goes back to Gnar. And that's one of the reasons we were so impressed with the way that they did this card, because that's exactly how he plays in League of Legends.
Yep.
It's like when you flip, he's Mega Gnar, but like he doesn't have control over how long he stays that way. We would be remiss if we didn't, kind of look at the flavor text here real quick. So on the front side, we have long ago, Gnar and his kin thrived in the Nakatak Valley. It was an innocent place, untouched by modern trappings. How unfortunate that the passing of time took this place from Gnar. But how fortunate that time doesn't exactly function as expected in Bandle City.
Exactly.
So, just like we said, Gnar doesn't care. He's a Yordle. Time already doesn't make sense. And it's also weird because it's like, okay, time took away Nakatak Valley, so that means it's in the Freljord. Oh, but it's fine. Time doesn't matter here in Bandle City. So where's Nakatak Valley? Gnar, answer the question. Ahanga. Great. All right.
Which is great because it actually, that bit of what feels like retcon almost works, because we know from talking about like Yumi, one of our recent episodes, that not all Yordles have a good grasp on portals and portal location and understanding where it is, which ones are permanent, which ones shift and change over time and move. Like that's also a cool concept that could be at play here because of the sheer amount of time, quote unquote, that may have passed. It's fun.
Yeah. Yeah, like I mean, once again, Riot has shown that they have a wonderful grasp on world building. Right, it's really good, and I'm just harping on it because we're talking about Yordles. But then we have the flip side of Gnar, and the Yordles sat on their tree branch and cheered for Gnar as he duked it out with another passing monster. These were rare events, but always awesome to spectate. And I love that because you get to see that in the full art of Mega Gnar, but it's also great because that's exactly what you get to see in his flip animation, like the first time he flips, and it is incredible. Like they nail it so much as far as when you put the flavor text and Gnar's story together. Yeah, because it's like, Gnar is just Captain Caveman. Like he's just here to hunt and have a good time with his friends. And Yordles, all they want is fun and adventure. And what's more adventurous than watching this giant Yeti go up against Godzilla?
Yeah, like, I was about to say, we all love Godzilla. Gudiraman. Anyways, with that, as always, thanks for listening. And we'll be back soon because Hetch brought up some stuff during this episode that we have to touch on at some point. But that will be in another episode.
Oh man, I can't wait to go deep and just show how crazy I am and how little of a life I have. Yeah, let's broadcast that. But hey, you can't wait to talk about it. Take care, everybody.